Welcome to Exhuming the Truth, the podcast where we delve into the mysterious worlds of cold cases, missing persons, true crime, and the fascinating science that is forensics. I'm forensic scientist and criminologist Asha Walther, and I am so thrilled to have you with me on this journey as we dance in the shadows of the world of crime, shining a light on scientific discovery while becoming another voice for those who need it most. So grab a drink and get comfortable while we jump into this episode together. Happy Tuesday, everybody. School is officially back in Perth, which is fantastic. I've got so much done in the last 48 hours with my children in school. It's been amazing. But having said that, tomorrow my boys are getting the day off because it is my youngest son's 7th birthday. I cannot believe it. Time has absolutely flown, and if you're a mum or a dad or a parent, then you know exactly how I feel. While it's on my mind, my orange and lemon for the week. My lemon was definitely one of my horses getting stuck in the fence and injuring all 4 of her legs. So that was pretty distressing, obviously more so for her, but I definitely was very upset. So that was definitely my lemon. My work phone is still dead/dying. But the orange is we have been conditionally approved for not-for-profit. So we're just waiting to raise the right amount of funds to be able to go ahead. And I'm nearly on top of all of the legal framework and all of the boring behind-the-scenes bits and pieces for that. So it's really exciting anyway. So I'm excited for everything to be nice and official. I also did a little TikTok video for WA residents on how to access high-risk sex offenders information in your area. This got a lot of attention, positive attention. Everybody was really happy with it. However, I did say, if you want me to do your state, let me know. So then, of course, people did let me know, as I asked them to, and I'm glad you did and you engaged with it. But, it just didn't overturn the results I wanted. Really, WA is basically the only state that allows such free and easy access to that sort of information. Victoria, you cannot access anything like that. Queensland, they have Daniel's law coming in, so you will be able to access it. And when you can, I'll put a video up. But that's essentially a law made by Daniel Morecambe's parents. So that's really great that's coming into place. But yeah, that's not immediate. It will take time, but when it does, I will cover those for you. And aside from that, I've really just been working like super, super hard, trying to get all of our foundations together at Exhuming the Truth, and also planning a wedding, trying to finalise bits and pieces for my wedding in March. So, and I am putting together a book actually at the moment, which is going to be really exciting, but we'll talk about that another time. And we're going to get straight into today's episode, which is an active missing person in WA. Welcome to Where is Tremaine Desmond Reid? Lockyer, Western Australia, is a quiet and residential pocket on the outskirts of Albany. It's a place where the bush meets the sea and where locals know each other by name and where life tends to move at an easygoing coastal pace. But on June the 12th, 2023, that calm was shattered. That's the day 37-year-old Tremaine Desmond Reid vanished. He was a father, a brother, and a son, one of 8 siblings in a large but close-knit family. He had 4 children of his own, 2 daughters and 2 sons. His eldest boy was from a previous relationship, and one of his daughters was in a boarding school down in Esperance. Now, before Tremaine disappeared, he had been moving between family homes in terms of places of residence. So he spent most of his time here in Perth, where he stayed with his sister, Kaylee. So Kaylee told me that she often would cook for him, wash his clothes, and help him get back on his feet when he needed it. She sounds like an absolutely fantastic sister. Family was his anchor, she said, and he kept in regular contact with all of his family. Now, he'd recently travelled to Kalgoorlie to visit his youngest son, and he'd also been to Albany to see his mum. But something changed in early June. On the 12th of June 2023, police attended a property on Vivian Crescent in Lockyer. They said they were looking for Tremaine in relation to a vehicle that was linked to him. According to the police report, Tremaine ran from the property and disappeared into nearby bushland. But here's where things become unclear. The vehicle they said he was running to had in fact been seized by the police 2 days earlier. So if the car was already gone, why would Tremaine have been running toward it? The family basically immediately questioned that version of events and asked to see the officer's body-worn camera footage from that day. Police told them that there was none, and they said that Tremaine ran too fast for anything to be captured. But as the family pointed out, body-worn cameras are a requirement during active police operations. That makes this detail very hard to reconcile. For almost 2 weeks, Tremaine's family pleaded with police to list him as a missing person, but each time they went in, they were told the same thing. He's not missing, he's on the run. It wasn't until June the 24th, which is 12 days after his disappearance, that he was officially reported missing. Now, during that time, police reportedly had asked the family not to search for him, saying that it would interfere with their investigation. And that investigation, the family later learned, involved only 2 police officers searching the area for Tremaine. Now, police told the family that they'd requested SES assistance, but when the family contacted the State Emergency Service directly, there wasn't any record of any such request. And when questioned, the police later said that they chose not to engage SES because they didn't want to, and I quote, endanger the lives of volunteers. To this very day, no official large-scale search has been confirmed. Tremaine's father, who suffers from heart problems, remembers his last conversation with his son vividly. Tremaine actually told him that he was in trouble and had planned to go into hiding for a little while, but promised he'd be back before his daughter's 18th birthday. This is something that meant a lot to him. He was a very big family man, and it's just something that he would never miss. But Tremaine never came back, and since then the family has endured the silence that followed. Loved ones have since passed away, people Tremaine would never have ignored. His phone remains inactive. No bank transactions, no sightings, no contact. And you guys know what this means by now. This is how we do a proof of life. Now, I was fortunate enough to put this together with the help of Tremaine's lovely sister, Kaylee. And she is a beautiful soul and is very eager to get this out there, understandably, because they're just not being heard and they're not getting any help. So his sister, Kaylee, and the rest of the family had actually reached out to the CCC, so that's the Corruption and Crime Commission, and they also reached out to a current affair and lawyers, but they found little to no help through all of these avenues. The family actually believe that the lack of support stems from the fact that Tremaine was running from police at the time of his disappearance, and this is a detail that should not erase the fact that he is still a missing person. Now, I've put together a little bit of a procedural and forensic analysis that I've called the missing steps in Tremaine's case. When someone disappears under police pursuit, there are strict procedures designed to protect both public safety and the integrity of the investigation. But in regards to Tremaine's case, several key steps appear to have been missed or delayed, or both, steps that could have changed the outcome entirely. Now, the first step I want to chat about is the body-worn camera protocol. Under the WA police policy, body-worn cameras have to be activated during any incident involving a pursuit, an arrest, or a contact with a person of interest. That's just the law. So the footage isn't just evidence, it's accountability, and that's on both ends. It documents every action, every command, and every second that might later come under scrutiny, and it's there for a reason. If officers say no footage exists because Tremaine ran too fast, that raises 2 possibilities. So the first is either the cameras weren't activated at all or the footage hasn't been disclosed. So one or the other, both are very serious procedural breaches. You either have not activated the cameras or you have failed to provide them with this information. This is a massive breach, especially when the individual disappears immediately after your interaction. Not to mention the 12-day delay. So the police didn't officially list him as missing until 12 days after he'd vanished. Every minute is crucial, every hour, every day in a missing persons case. 12 days is just not acceptable to me. And in forensic search terms, that's critical time lost. Within the first 48 hours, there's scent trails that are beginning to degrade, physical evidence that get contaminated, and witnesses, of course, their memories fade very quickly. And to tell a family that their loved one is on the run instead of missing isn't just dismissive, it actually undermines the forensic process itself. Because whether someone fled voluntarily or not, once they vanish without contact, they meet that criteria of a missing person, not just as we know it, but under the Australian National Guidelines. Now, the search and the SES involvement. So WA Police stated that they requested SES assistance at the time. So they've said this to the family, but the records clearly obtained by the family show that no such request was ever lodged. So when the police were asked and confronted about this later, they chose to say that they didn't involve SES because they didn't want to endanger volunteer lives. But SES is trained to do this. They conduct search operations, they operate in bushlands, dense bushlands, potentially hazardous conditions, and to exclude them without documentation removes a layer of accountability and it reduces the scope of any meaningful ground search. And not to mention you lied because you said that you did engage them and then you said you did not. Which brings me to the last known witnesses here. So police are the last confirmed witnesses to have seen Tremaine alive. So that in itself, in my opinion, should have triggered a critical incident review. So that would require an independent team to oversee the case to ensure transparency and to make sure everyone's doing their job correctly. And these reviews are standard practice, basically. When someone disappears following contact with police and no one else saw them after that, that is just standard procedure. So without that review and this obvious vital evidence, GPS logs, radio calls, dash cam footage, they will basically never be presented if not preserved, which is a huge problem, if not the biggest problem. These procedural failures don't just exist on paper, though. They also ripple outwards. So every missed step here deepens the family's uncertainty and it's corroding the public trust, to put it lightly. When families have to literally beg authorities to take a disappearance seriously, it shifts the burden of investigation from the system to the survivors, and it makes it even heavier for them to carry. And that's exactly where Tremaine's family stand today, between the silence of these unanswered questions and then that noise of the bureaucratic deflection that they're facing with authorities, which is just disgusting. In cases like this, transparency isn't optional. It's the foundation of justice. It's not rocket science, because when police become the last people to see someone alive, it's the public's right to answers, and that right to answers becomes even stronger. Yes, it's no secret that Tremaine had some prior troubles or run-ins with police and the law. And as I always say, every missing person is as equally as important as the next or the one before them. We have desperate family members here. We've got kids without their dad. We've got a mother without her son, talking to his sister Kaylee. She's just so desperate for answers. And why are some cases more important than others? It blows my mind. And as of today, there's been not a single trace of Tremaine. Nothing has been found. The last people to see him alive, police officers. Those same officers say no footage exists. The same agency that nearly took 2 weeks, or actually, I think precisely 2 weeks, to declare him missing. And I'll bet your bottom dollar that hardly anyone you know has heard Tremaine's name before listening to this. You may have seen it, you might have scrolled past it on social media once. Has it been on the TV? Has it been televised? Has it been promoted? Has it been in the paper? No. And we need action, and we need it now. Somewhere out there, perhaps in the thick bush surrounding Lockyer, or even beyond that, lies the truth of what happened that day to Tremaine. And for his family, that truth is all they've ever asked for. We're going to follow this and keep in contact with Tremaine's family members, and hopefully we will be able to update you and try and help them get a bit of a move on in this case. But in the meantime, if you or anyone you know has any information about his disappearance, please contact Crimestoppers on 1-800-333-000. You can also message us at any time with any questions. We appreciate you so much for being here and for listening to our active missing persons cases. They're so very important. So if you do have the time and the will, please share this episode and share his name and help us help the family. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you have enjoyed it here. You can subscribe to stay up to date across all platforms. You can also help us to reach our not-for-profit goal by subscribing to our paid episodes, which are on Spotify, or by making a donation to allow us to also help more families like these. You can join in on case discussions and make case requests on our Facebook group or our Facebook page. You can find the link to the group in our podcast notes, but as always, stay curious, stay informed, and until next time, trust your instincts and keep seeking the truth.